Boomers worship Moloch. And not literally, but definitely some do, actually. But most of them just correspond with Molochian energies. Because what is Moloch? What is the Moloch ritual? You're sacrificing the youth for material gain in the now. And that's exactly what boomers do. We are all being slammed shut, and the bronze bull millennials as we are incinerated to power the boomer lifestyle. I can give you some examples, for instance. In British Columbia, if you are a boomer and you own a house, you have to be a boomer, by the way. You have to be over 55. So I guess some Xers now are, they're basically becoming boomers anyway, alchemically boomerized. You can do this thing called a tax deferral. And basically, your taxes are paid through your property value, and it eats away at your property value. So that when you sell your house when you die, or your kids sell your house when you die, all the unpaid property tax is taken off the principal of your house, and your kids have to deal with that. Defer it to the next generation. 3/4 of boomers say they value stability in their community over affordability for younger generations to move in. Okay, we don't care about the youngins trying to start a family, trying to buy a place, trying to climb the property ladder. They pulled up the ladder because they don't care about you, they don't care about their kids. I remember when I was a kid, maybe around 20, I was looking at a house to buy with my brother because we were rise and grinding as young, lazy millennials. We were so lazy that at 20 we had enough for a down payment. And we had a boomer realtor, and he looks at us. He's like, "Oh, you guys, you can't be buying a house together, you know? Brothers never works out together when brothers try to buy a house together, you know? Me and my brother," right? And it's just basically he told us a story about him and his brother got in a blood feud over a property that they bought together. So therefore, me and my brother should never ever work together in any venture at all. And it's true. Every boomer I hear, they get in some blood sports with their relatives over the property of their family, over some petty inheritance, something like that. I have another example. My aunt passed away maybe half a decade ago. Left me with some money, 10K Canadian. What's that? It's like what? $30 American or something like that. Anyway, it's not life-changing money. Certainly not life-changing money for a boomer, but her boyfriend, by the way, wasn't even her husband. Some boyfriend who they live together. I don't know what these boomers do. They just never get married or something. I don't know. A boomers got divorced and then just had a live-in husband for the next 40 years. It's just anyway. So this guy who's not even related to me didn't want to give me my blood aunt's money that she was going to leave me. And we had to get a court order just so we could fork over the cash, which he eventually did. But what's 10K Canadian to a boomer? That's like a couple of rolls of toilet paper, like whatever. It doesn't even matter. But no, they have to scrounge and squabble over every dime. Okay? Drop a penny in front of a boomer if you want to get his attention. And I don't know where this comes from. Okay, it's the post-World War world. Everyone has trauma. Everyone has, it's not really the case though. Because my grandfather, he didn't fight in a war. His dad fought in the war. His dad fought in a war when he was 15. The Anglo Empire requested him to fight on behalf of King and Empire. And when he was 15, he went over there and fought Germans for some reason. I don't know. You tell me why. So, yeah, I can understand him having some issues because of his dad losing an eyeball in the war, losing a brother in a raid. Yeah, that would cause some problems. But then their kids, it's like, okay, post-war economic boom, baby boom. Don't even look at minimum wage conversion stats, okay? It'll ruin your day. But I mean, that's just life. That's just the life they had. It's not even that I care, it's just the gaslight aspect. People telling us that we're lazy, people telling us that we don't work hard, people telling us that we have it better. We have Bitbops and we have shiny objects and we have the internet and we have international finance pouring in more and more every day. So our GDP goes up. You know what about GDP? I heard I don't know who said this. It was a Czech guy, Czech stand-up comedian. I don't know. So it's not my original thought, but he was talking about GDP. He said, Mordor would have a higher GDP than Rivendell because Mordor had a war economy. They were heavily industrialized, lower living standards, but more products coming out, right? Okay. And then you have Rivendell, obviously, would have had a lower GDP. They have been more sustainable, more recyclable goods. They reforged swords, they put them back together. They were a green economy. But boomers would prefer the Mordor GDP society over the Rivendell because they really did have a Rivendell world. I mean, imagine being a boomer cruising with your V8, no seatbelt, smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer, no one giving a single fuck. I would love that. I would love that. Crashing your V8s, driving them off ramps and bridges and doing all sorts of shenanigans that you can't do now, otherwise you go to jail. Being able to thump people, that would have been fun. You could just thump each other, nobody cared. Now you look at somebody wrong and, you're in the slammer. But I get gang stalked by a boomer in my neighborhood. He drives around all day in his ATV truck Kubota, drives by my house about 8 times a day, 10 times a day, looking at me, seeing what I'm up to, what kind of bad things I'm doing, because I've really, I said a couple videos ago that I was going to go out of my way to really just dig into my boomer neighbors and any way I can. Not cutting the lawn was one of my ideas I had. I'd stop cutting the lawn. On top of that, I basically turned my backyard into a giant jungle gym. I have like a bench, I have a squat rack, and I bought recently a stand-up punching bag. So boomers are like walking their little boomer dogs, and I'm just slamming my punching bag with overhead rights, just waking up the whole neighborhood with my thumping. And so I think they might think I'm some sort of I don't know what they think I am. They probably think I'm somebody who's, up to no good, but I don't care. if they're gonna boom around on their ATV trucks and, pretend like they're some community agent, two can play at that game. You don't even know. All right. I gotta, guys in the comments, cook me up some more things I can do to piss off my boomer neighbors. That's essentially my mission in life at this point, is to make boomers seethe in whatever capacity I can. I will make them seethe. I've also noticed another thing about boomers is that whenever their children achieve some sort of success, they have to stick their nose so far into that business venture, so far into that success that they've generated for themselves with zero help from the boomers. By the way, the boomers did not contribute to their success, to their venture. The millennial scraped together what brains he had left, what brains he managed to not get scrambled by modern MK Ultra and all the slop we have to consume. This millennial is so talented that despite all the handicaps that have been thrown at him his entire life, he still managed to succeed. And somehow the boomer wants to take credit and has to stick his nose into everything he does. Right? These boomers, I see it all the time. Whatever business, whatever thing gets off the ground, these boomers just show up. They smell the money. They see the pennies dropping, and they start pinching them pennies and picking them up right off the ground. Throw a penny in front of a boomer. And Portugal. I feel bad for Portuguese. If there's any Portuguese out there, buckle up, Buttercup, because the boomers, the snowbirds, Mexico's too expensive now. Mexico is sayonara. Adios, amigo. Because Mexico is, I don't know, they jacked up the prices. They got too greedy. So now all the boomers are like, you know what? We'll just go to the Mexico of Europe, Portugal. So yeah, get ready. You're going to have lots of people asking you a lot of really dumb questions. You're going to see a lot of really loud, fat people show up on your borders asking you where they can get some American coffee. And enjoy. I hope you find your new economic model satisfying, and you can try to at least please squeeze as much money as you can out of these people. They deserve to have that done to them. Whenever I see a boomer, I just think Steppenwolf, Magic Carpet Ride. I like to see, right? I don't know, like, I don't know if it's electronic warfare. I don't know if that's some sort of synesthesia I can taste and smell and hear, but whenever I can just like, I hear that song and I'll look behind me and I'll see a boomer with his gut hanging out trying to shamble together some sort of movement going on. And I know maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I'm going a bit too hard, but I think everyone has had this experience. And the more I hammer down on this experience, the more it resonates with people. So I can't be the only one who's seen this. I can't be alone in this perspective. And what can be like, I know I'm just making fun of them. And I don't think anything will be done or can be done to fix them. We just have to wait out the storm, wait out the boomer yoga, the Kali boomer, the boomer yuga. Right? We're living in the boomer yuga and we just have to ride the millennial tiger until they go. And some people are saying, well, millennials will become they'll become Neue boomers. Neue boomers because the millennials will inherit all of the boomer assets and wealth. And then the millennials will become actually the richest generation of all time. and we will become giga boomers and greed mog even them. There's a couple of problems with this presupposition because you're assuming the boomers are going to have anything left to give the millennials, okay? And I don't think that's going to be the case, okay? There was some sort of leaked audio of Xi and Putin and the North Korean fellow. Apparently, they were talking about Oregon harvesting people to extend their lives. Now, it may or may not be true that that happened. Okay, it could just be some sort of propaganda online. Obviously, I see that. But it's true in spirit because if boomers could, they would. Okay, if they could, I don't care if they're Soviet boomers, I don't care if they're Sino boomers, I don't care if they're Western boomers. If boomers could, they would. They would harvest. That's the ultimate Moloch ritual right there. And I'm sure it's already happening on some level. Okay, they're not afraid to use foreskin cream on their face. God knows what else they're willing to do. Okay, all these boomers in North America got their sons to get clipped on the schmeckle. Okay, I was lucky enough not to get clipped on the schmeckle, but most of my peers did. For some reason, they have to always divulge that information, but you never pry. They just have to tell you. And the schmeckle clipping ritual. Okay, their boomers did that. Like they don't care about their sons, obviously. Some say that boomers care more about their daughters than their sons. I'd have to think about that more. I don't know. They definitely got away with a lot more, that's for sure. So in that case, yeah, they did. They could do no wrong. Man, growing up, some of these girls, I remember like this is boomer parenting 101. I'd be like 14 or 15 running around town with a bunch of millennial girls, and we'd be going to like crack houses just so we could get weed. Looking back, how did boomer parents let their daughters run around town at that age and going to those places and doing that stuff with no supervision, oversight, or concern? And it happened a lot. And there was a lot of nefarious things going on at that age, even. That's why when I hear about, oh, Gen Z is Gen Z is degenerate and they're falling apart and they don't do nothing. And I mean, when I saw a few clips from Euphoria and like these Gen Z slop shows and like Gen Z, you know, degeneracy. I mean, millennials degeneracy mog Gen Z into oblivion. And it has a lot to do with the fact that our parents just simply did not care at all. They thought it was normal. They thought it was part of growing up. Okay. They watched that 70s show and they said, oh, having your kids do drugs in the basement all day, that is just socially acceptable. That's fine. And that's been happening for decades. So why would I care? I think Gen Z probably has, from what I've gathered, they have a bit more supervision from their, one thing I like the Gen X is they seem to be a bit more responsible as parents than boomers were. So that's a good thing because they probably witnessed it firsthand, right? I just don't know why they have to be so greedy because they did grow up in abundance. I mean, a lot of them say they grew up poor, but it's kind of like poor LARPing. Like they didn't a lot of the grandparent, a lot of the money that boomers have comes from even their own parents. A lot of boomers are trust fund babies. The amount of boomers I know who are trust fund babies is insane. And they got their trust fund money and they built their little homesteads and they built their little cottages and they built their little dream lives that they could have because their dads, you know, it was their dads who set a lot of them up. And they didn't return the favor for their kids, unless they're, maybe these Italians, these Meds, these more insular type of ethnicities, Jews. How many Jews do you hear complain about their Joomer parents? You don't hear that very often. You don't see a lot of Jews on X. Oy vey. Oy vey. You don't hear that very often. The Jews, oh yeah, we'll get you set up with oh yeah, boy, good going, right? We'll get you set up, good going. And they did, and that's what you should do for your kin, for your relatives. You should set them up. But no, it's like there's like a proving ground you had to do for your boomer parents, and everyone's got a rich boomer uncle, and they don't seem to be shirking out any dough. And then you see it with other ethnicities. It's just, you know, it's white. The whiter you are, it seems, the more of a PvP solo hardcore battle royale game you have to play. Meanwhile, everybody else gets to do team PvE. I wish I could do team PvE. Where's my PvP to PvE server swap? I'm tired of playing PvP all the time. Solo PvP hardcore. Boomers had such a PvE life. Not even. They always talk about it. You always hear, yeah, you could work one place, fuck around, get fired, and then immediately the next day you walk across the street and get a new job. I've literally heard that verbatim from like 12 different boomers. And the boomers have more bars. I mean, the town I'm from, I think it has 2 bars now. Back in the 70s and 80s, there was like 20 bars. Okay? They were a bunch of drunks. They still are. How many bars do you need in a city? There's more bars than Timmy's. And that's a lot. And I can't, you hear these stories, Oh, me and Todd were just out there fucking drinking and we just started fucking ripping around, spinning up in the backwoods there. And we just rolled the whole fucking V8 engine over the fucking cliff. And then Todd, broke his arm, but we fucking crawled out and it's like every story is like that. They're just always driving off cliffs and there's explosions happening in the background. Meanwhile, we had to buy like a Tesla that will just turn off if you're going too fast, or if you take the wrong route, it'll just stop you, turn you around. No, you can't go back roading. No, the Tesla will tell it if you're drinking and driving. If you have a little road beer, the Tesla's going to report you to the authorities. You can't have any fun here. Nope. That's why I kind of liked traveling in Eastern Europe, Central Europe. Sorry, Czech. Sorry, Poles. Central Europe. We'll Central Europe. Let's get after you. Yeah. We'll Central Europe. Ugh. Yeah, okay. You're Central Europe. Oh. You want to see someone lose their mind? Call a V4 country Eastern Europe. You'll get an earful. But yeah, I like going there because I think that's kind of how it used to be here. You know, people are just less on you. There's less like they don't live in such a Karen society. You can drive your green leaf e-scooter anywhere you want. Nobody really gives a single F. I saw people just driving these weird makeshift two-stroke bicycle rigs around in Ukraine, like just smoking up the entire street with fumes. You know, ladas that have been just kept together for generations. Just, I mean, that's where the global warming is coming from. It's all these ladas just puking out fumes, just smoking up entire city blocks, trying to get the engine going. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty awesome to see. You don't, I mean, everything is. Boomers had the ultimate, they almost had like a deregulated society, even compared to their parents, because everything was highly, you know, they lived in a more strict society. There was way more moral institutions. There was more morality. So everything for them got deregulated. And then what they do for us, they hyper regulate everything in society, where you're at the point now where if you even buy where I live, boomers have made it so that even if you manage to scrounge enough money to buy a property, okay, let's say you want to do a little off grid living, you want to do some off grid living, you can't, because you have to have a house on a property to live on it, and the house has to be up to snuff so it doesn't trigger your boomer neighbors enough that they have a seizure and start sneezing at the local government to clamp down on you in order for you to figure it out. So boomer sneezing has led to the fact that you can't even escape. If you know, I'm not saying this is like a solution for people. I'm a very introverted guy. I'm a hermit. I like nature. I like outdoors. It's not typical. I understand that. And I'm not offering this as a solution to people, but I like it. And I like being away from people. And so for a long time, I really wanted just to be like an off grid type of guy, but it's just, it's just not going to happen for me. It's never, it's going to be so expensive to even attempt that. You know, I like cities, I do. But as I get older, the more and more I just want to be in my own world. You know, cities are nice when you're in your 20s, early 30s. The more, the more I'm, you know, I'm just going to live in a swamp. I guess that's just going to be my future. But for them, they could just buy a plot of land and just slap a slop shack on that swamp and Shrek Max and literally live like Shrek and not have a single worry that anybody is going to clamp down on them. And they could just, man, I remember some of these boomers back in the 90s, they had like scrap yards that they could just tow random junk heaps to these scrap yards, and they'd just be scrappers for a living, and they just didn't care about anything, and they could just, you know, when they needed money, they just pick apart these cars and these engines, and the rest of their days they just fish and live off the land. And that that's been regulated out of existence. We have so much land that we could be creating like new frontiers. Okay? You know, Trump's clamping down on the H-1B visas. They're making it so that you have to pay 100 grand now to get in the US. I think to immigrate to Canada, you should have to do a tour. You should have to do a frontier tour, clear some brush, drain some swamps, you know, put them to work. It's going to happen anyway, right? It's not going to stop. So we might as well you know, get them rock picking, clearing, making some new settlements. I mean, there's just, but international finance investment is the model. Bring in as much foreign money as you can to shore up asset values. So that keeps the boomers' dopamine spiking. So they think things are getting better. Meanwhile, everybody else has to fight for scraps. This is why I should be in charge, okay? I got a lot of bright ideas. The Neue Frontier, Lebensborn, Lebensraum operation. I think it's a great idea. You get to experience true Canadian living, you get to experience nature, you get to contribute, and people can just, I think it'd be great. I think it would be a boost. You can deal with the black flies, you can deal with the mosquitoes, you can deal with the bushmen who live up north, the wildlings, and the bears. It'd be fun. We could make a reality TV show out of it. Film them, see how long they last, how many days. We have different clans. We got the Filipinos. I think the Filipinos would do pretty well. They're pretty resourceful. Filipinos versus the Punjabs versus the Nigerians. Who else are they bringing in? The Papua New Guinea Highlanders, the Capoid Bushmen. We'll have a whole bunch of different clans, and they can eke out their little ecosystem up in the Canadian Shield, and we can see who thrives and who survives, and we can monetize it, and we can make a whole, Alone. This will be way bigger than Alone. This will be the greatest show of all time. I'm telling you. This is why I should be in charge. Okay. We'll get on. We'll start a party. Like people are starting parties. Their ideas are boring. They're lame. Nobody cares about these little cliques that are popping up. They don't have any pizzazz. That's what we need. We need gladiatory arenas, and we need Lebensraum reality TV shows. But no, we have to deal with, just boring rhetoric. Ugh, it's never going to work. Okay. Anyway. And so boomers are Molochian. They don't care about the youth. And it's a shame. But I think for millennials, they're going to have like an inverse value. Again, we're saying that we're going to be the worst people ever. We're going to be giga boomers. We're going to mog boomers and their greed. I think millennials will be completely different. I think they'll be more generous. I think they'll be better suited for parenthood. I think they'll be kinder. I think, boomers hate their siblings. I'm close with my brother. And I know not every millennial gets along with their sibling, but I think per capita, we get along a lot more. We have a lot more camaraderie. We have a lot more brotherhood. We have a lot more things in common. And I think it's going to be a lot different in terms of how we operate. Because eventually, we will be the people in positions of power one day. Not me, obviously. I'm going to be Shrek Max. I'm going to be Shrekking it up. Shrekking. I've been Shrekking for a long time. Me and my mythological creatures will be living up in the swamps. But, maybe somebody listening obviously will be in power one day. And I don't know. I just hope we just need to deregulate a lot of things. We need to deregulate Canada. Don't even get me started. We could be an economic superpower. Yeah. Look at Norway. What they did when they nationalized their oil industry. Oh, we can't take out the oil. Okay. If there's going to be a World War III, we might as well profit. If World War III is going to happen and we have oil, we're going to be sitting pretty. So why not profit off of it? Okay. I got a lot of bright ideas. One good thing that's happening is that we are going to be trading with Germany a lot of our resources. So I am happy about that. Yeah. But I don't think that was a boomer call though. I really don't. Boomers would probably sneed about doing any business deals with Germany. Yeah, you got millennials, yeah. Well, I mean, I actually none come to mind. So the only millennial that comes to mind is JD Vance, but is he actually a millennial? Like he's like a cusp. He's like a Gen X cusp. Like we need a true we gotta wait till we have like a true middle, late millennial until we can actually see what kind of talent will be popping up. But you're seeing the boomer talent, okay? We got Trump. We got whatever. I don't even know our prime minister's name. He's so boring and just I don't know, who is he? What's his name? He's a weirdo anyway. International financier, international banker. That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we need right now. We need a international finance boomer to continue the same policies, the same investment schemes that are going to just continually drag us down into second world status. I think people in Central Europe have better lives than we do at this point. I think they have a higher living standard. I think rapidly you'll see Poland actually make more uh, not even GDP growth, but GDP per capita income. I think Poland will actually overcome Canada within the next 10 years. But again, it's a different mindset to invest in your own people or have everyone in the world come and invest in you, and we'll see how that pans out over a long enough time period, and it's not going to be good for us. But you can thank the boomers for that. And oh, now you have some boomers like backtrack. Oh, waking up. Oh, now you have like boomers backtracking, saying, "Oh, well, we didn't want this, and this didn't happen," and they'll throw you a bone sometimes. Like, yeah, it is a little bit harder, like, but sometimes they won't. Sometimes they won't throw you a bone. Sometimes they'll say, "Well, they had they had some sort of gas crisis in the 70s that they always complain about, and oh, the 80s were rough. The 80s were awesome. Are you kidding me? 80s movies are awesome. 80s music, there's a vitality there. There was like a Nietzschean vitality to the 80s that wasn't around like that. Maybe there was kind of an echo of that in the 2000s. We had the Spike TV Nietzschean degeneracy, global American imperialism era, where it was just guns, God, war, and blondes and boobs on Spike TV all day. But that got rapidly switched over to what we have now, what we had in the tens, which was like my main era, which was like complete inversion of all the complete substantiation of all values of the Spike TV decade. But they had the 80s and the 70s, and even a lot of them had the 90s. And I've been watching a lot of movies from the pre-internet era lately, and I said that again. I think I said that last video, but again, it's just amazing how different the world was before technology really took over everything. I mean, technology did already have everything, but social media. Of course, I'm guilty. I'm talking to you through social media right now, but just even my own life, the world before social media, man, everything is so hyper competitive now because of social media and hyper consumerist and hyper active. sometimes it's just like, how did we get here? Boomers. It was the boomers. Okay. All right. I hope you like my boomer rant. Just need to get it up off my chest. Gonna take a peek around the corner, see if my boomer community agent is ripping around on his Kubota, seeing if he's gonna be, gawking at me because he just has to see what I'm up to. I make sure my yard is a complete disaster, so he gets even more upset. Anyway, guys, have a good one. Give me some boomer stories. See you next time.